Hey guys, well, it's the end of May and look at there, I still have my Christmas lights up. Why, you might ask? Well, my wife kind of likes the idea of having the house outlined with light. However, I don't like the look of a string of lights on my house at the end of May. So we've come to a compromise and we're going to use the Govee lighting system to give permanent lights to our house. Now, when I made this decision, I actually looked at many videos on how to do this particular project, and I found absolutely none of them that covered my particular situation. And as I look around at my neighbors, I see that almost everybody at least in my area, has the same problem. And that problem is open soffits. So if you search around on the internet, you're going to find that most of your Govee installation solutions are on rooftops such as this, closed soffit rooftops, or this one here, which is very close to my house. And these are rooftops that generally are very simple to install upon simply because they have a very flat surface. But what do you do when your rooftop looks like this? Well, certainly not like what this guy did, which was drill holes through his rafter tails. I'm not sure exactly what that does to the structural integrity of your roof, but I didn't think that this was a good idea at all. So I looked and looked about, and I could not find really anybody who was doing a rooftop like mine. So I had to think long and hard about how am I going to do this. So the Govee system isn't exactly what I would call cheap. I need 150 feet, and that was going to run me about $450 for the first generation, about $550 for the second generation. And as far as I could tell, the big difference between the two was that the second generation was more easily spliced, not an issue, more waterproof, California, not a big issue. Then the final thing was that it does warm white, and that would have been nice, but was it $100 nice? And I ultimately decided, no, I think I could do without that. So let's take a look inside the box. So this is the Govee RGBIC permanent outdoor lights. This is the first generation version, I believe. It's the 150-foot box. And before I open it up, I want to make sure that it's going to have what I want. And of course, they're probably not going to say that on the outside of the box. Which means I'll have to open it in order to figure out whether or not this is what I want. Another big difference between the Govee first generation and second generation is the number of lights. First generation has 108 lights. However, each light has about 26 lumens, whereas the second generation, every light, I believe, has somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 lumens and only 90 lights. I kind of like the idea of having more lights, not less, so I went with that. That was another deciding factor. There's a quick start guide. Let's see. This is going to be the power supply and the control box, I'm sure. User's manual. And then each one of these boxes on the inside is about 50 feet. So So I got the string of lights, I have mounting pieces, and extra little 3M stickies. Now, what I learned from one of the other YouTubers is that you do not want to stick these in cold weather. So doing this during the spring, for me, is a good idea because it will not be that cold. But the 3M doesn't like cold weather. Now this box right here is going to decide whether or not I stay with the first generation or I go with the second generation. Ah, that's good. Okay, so there is your power supply, and then this will be your controller box, your Govee controller box. Gives you plenty of line out for that. But these are the things that really, really interested me about this. I really want to make sure I had this. So really the deciding factor for me as to whether or not I keep first generation versus second generation are these gizmos right here. These are the extension cables for the Govee. I have to bridge right around 12 to 16 feet. And I needed to make sure that I could bridge that gap without having to cut into it. Now, I could do that. I'm experienced with it. Apparently the first generation isn't as cut friendly as the second generation, but I could have done it, but I just didn't really want to. I didn't want to go through that hassle. So it appears to have 2 extensions. I'm not sure exactly how long the extensions are, so here goes. So that's 12-foot extension. And I'm assuming the other one is 12 feet too. That's actually going to work out really well for me. I'm hoping that 12 feet will be good enough, but if not, I got a little bit more. Now, before I get too far into this project, I want to plug in all the lights and make sure that they're functioning properly. Now, these come with a male and a female end, and they're pretty idiot proof. It's got a nice little groove there. It's really only going to go in one direction, so you don't have to worry about bending up your pins. Go in, and then this little collet slides over that. It makes a nice little waterproof contact. Alright, now let's plug it in and let's see how this works. There we go. Looks like every one of them works. I'm just gonna real quick glance through. All those pixels are functioning. Now I don't want to go into a big long video on how these things work. There are plenty of videos out there to show you exactly that. I mostly want to show you that if you do not have those closed soffits and instead the open rafter tails like I do, you can still make these work. It's a little bit more effort, but you can make it work and make it look nice. So I went out to my local hardware store and tried to come up with a good idea on how to bridge the gap between the rafter tails. And I looked at the 1 inch by 2 inch by 10 foot slats, and they were about $1.62 a pop. I could pick up these 2x6s for, I think they were like $8. I could rip those up into about 5 slats a piece, and that would save me a little bit of money there. Once I ripped those slats, then I primered them and painted them the same color as the eaves of my house. I got most of the prep work done, so hopefully today is installation day. Now I'm going to put my wooden slats up first using a brad nailer, and then I'm going to affix the lights to those. And for that, the kit actually comes with a bunch of these little clips, but I bought a bunch of extra ones because I want my wires to look nice and neat. So I bought a whole big box of extra clips. And this was interesting to me. I thought the Govee people kind of screwed up a little bit here. There should have been some eyelets on this guy so that you could screw him up in underneath the eaves too. And there's nothing to really hold him in place. So as a result, I got some of these cable clamps to do that, and that should go over either side here. And it's not ideal. I might even put some double-sided sticky tape on that just to make sure. Interestingly enough, on the controller box here, or the on-off switch box, whatever, it does have 3M double-sided sticky tape on there. So, but that's a lot lighter than the transformer box. All right, let's go to work. Now, I searched about on the internet to find out what was the best distance between the wall and the lights in order to get that nice triangular lighting effect while still illuminating most of the wall. And Govee themselves say about 3 centimeters to 10 centimeters. And since I'm an American, that doesn't mean a heck of a lot to me. I had to convert to inches. But I also searched around to find out what others were doing. And a lot of them were doing about 3 inches. Now, to be honest with you, it's really going to depend on your walls and your own personal tastes. But what a lot of guys were doing is they were finding 2x4s, just scrap pieces of 2x4, and using them as a measurement to determine exactly where to set their lights. So that's what I'm going to do. Well, once I got my first slat in and just a couple of them nailed in place, I realized a problem that I was going to have. Essentially, my rafter tails are of course angled downward. When I attach something to it, it's going to also angle this here. And as a result, it's going to make the light a hot spot wherever it lands, and that light will quickly drop off the rest of the way down. So I need to angle this to be a little bit more flat. So I need to figure out exactly how I'm going to do that. So since I was already using a 2x4 as a spacer, it's held up against the wall tightly. It creates a natural straight edge for my piece of trim. So now I can attach my trim, staple it in, and it'll be at a relatively flat angle. So once in place, the trim pieces are nearly invisible. Now once I put the lights on, they'll get a little bit more visible. This is an area that's probably going to vex me, mostly because I have to make it around this corner over here, and that means just basically running that wire around there, and I will probably end up having to put one of the pixels perhaps on this board here. So I have to really plan out how my pixels land on the house so that I get that pixel right where I want it. Now once I get up here on the porch, my plan is to run the pixels right along this line right into the roof, and then we're going to start the trim again along this portion here and all the way down. Well, it's out with the old and in with the new. So the Govee are very easy to hang. They have this 3M tape here that will hold it in place pretty securely. And according to another YouTuber, you gotta make sure you're not doing it in cold weather. Plan to do this in warm weather. The 3M tape works a lot better Here in California, I don't have to worry about that so much. I bought extra of these little brackets for holding the wire in place. And I'm doing a lot of overkill with the brackets. So I'm hoping I don't need to screw them in. They come with little screws to put them in place. But that's gonna be a big hassle, so I'm gonna try to avoid doing that. What I like about the white on white is that this is the area where most people are going to actually see the lights. They're not going to see them over by the garage, they're not going to see them over by the windows, but when they walk up to the porch, they're going to see them. So having this white porch with the white wires makes them near invisible unless they are turned on. And so there you have it, how to install the Govee when you have open soffits or rafter tails instead of those closed soffits. A little bit more work, but oh so worth it. One thing I want to add is I can't find a 4th of July mode. Come on, Govee. I know you sell internationally, but really there should be a 4th of July mode. So I guess I'm off to create my own.